this afternoon, Charlotte Woods is here, and she's going to be telling us or giving us a bit of an overview of the study she was involved in. The study she carried out, a pilot study looking at Alexander technique within the context of a care home. So would you like to just give us an overview, Charlotte?
Yes, of course. Thanks for the opportunity to sort of talk about it. It's good to be able to do that. Yeah, my mum was diagnosed with dementia back in 2012, and in 2018 she was moved to a care home nearby, locally to us. She'd previously been about 100 miles away, so it was difficult to spend much time with her and things. And initially, particularly, I was spending a lot of time with my mum in the home and sharing in her care with the care staff there while she was settling in and getting used to the routine and all the rest of it. And even thereafter, I was visiting her every day, maybe spending an hour or so. So I got to know the home really well. It was very small at the time. I mean, the place is large, but it had very few residents because it was brand new when Mum moved in. And so there are a few residents, relatively few staff, and regular visitors, typically the spouse of one of the residents who were there every day. So I got to know people really well. I was able to observe the home at close quarters. And just being there, I was able to see how the residents, many of them would be a bit stiff, not very mobile, as what you might expect. So it was difficult for them to be transferred onto a wheelchair or that kind of thing. They were anxious, showing signs of sort of stress or strain. The visitors, also often themselves elderly, were suffering the kinds of problems of stiffness and lack of mobility, etc., and the sort of emotional toll of having a loved one with dementia or some similar problem. So, and the staff also, many of them had various kinds of joint pain, back pain from the sort of physical demands of moving residents, etc. And a lot of them were quite stressed and said they were stressed, and you could see they were stressed. And sickness absence was quite a problem for staff. So as I sat there in the home and moved around, I kept thinking to myself, gosh, I think there's plenty of scope here for me and for other Alexander teachers to do work in this kind of setting. I'd found that the Alexander technique had really helped me deal with the sort of emotion that goes with caring for somebody with dementia, and had really helped my mum with her mobility and keeping her calm and all that kind of thing. So I thought, gosh, this is really a useful thing to be doing. Meanwhile, my colleagues in the in the Alexander Technique community didn't seem to be talking much about dementia or working with people with dementia. So I thought, oh, is this something that's not really very common, or and it seemed like there was untapped potential there. That's all. So I wanted to try and find out if I could, if this was something that would be beneficial within the home, and I talked to the management, had various meetings with them, and they said that they would be willing to let me do a small pilot study just to test out this idea, how can, if at all, the Alexander technique help with different people in the care home, the residents and the care staff, and potentially the visitors as well. So I was just about retired at that point, but I had been a lecturer for 20 years and had a lot of experience of doing research. So I had that kind of background. And I was also just qualified as an Alexander teacher, so I had that as well. So I thought I was well placed to actually undertake a little bit of research and sort of test out my assumption that the Alexander technique would be beneficial in that setting in various ways. So I conducted this small pilot, recruited 2 members of staff and 2 residents, very different in age and with the kind of problems that they were dealing with. And I conducted a series of more or less a dozen short lessons one-to-one with them, and gathered quite a lot of data. I treated them each as a separate case study, and gathered slightly different data depending on the capacity of the different residents, or different participants rather, and wrote them all up as individual case studies. I was very pleased with what came out of the study. I had gone in with an open mind, and I must say that the results kind of exceeded my expectations. I think they exceeded the expectations of the participants as well. So the residents who were mid 70s and late 90s, they certainly had a decrease in pain, improved sort of mobility, and sort of lighter mood, became more sociable as a result of their lessons. And the two staff members also had less pain, lighter mood, and it help with their relationships with colleagues and residents, etc. So very, quite pleasing results. And in the coming videos, I just wanted to say give a bit more detail to how the study came about, the design of the study, how information giving and consent taking were handled in quite a sensitive kind of setting, the kinds of data that were collected, the results that were obtained, and then what has happened since the project was completed.
Brilliant. That's really helpful, really clear overview. Thank you.
Welcome.